A few years ago in the United States, the population relied on the protection of a superhero team called Zenith, made up of 5 extremely powerful young people who swore to protect the world from all evil beings. This group was led by Captain Zoom, along with his brother, Concussion, who possessed powers that allowed him to throw supersonic punches at his enemies. One day, a famous scientist called Dr. Grant contacted the superheroes and offered them a way to become stronger and stronger, using gamma-13 radiation to boost their powers. The problem is that all those experiments ended up affecting the mind of Concussion, who, thanks to this hypnosis, ended up becoming a great villain and started attacking the members of his own team. Due to the great battle he fought against his brother so that he could eliminate him, Zoom ended up losing his powers, making him an ordinary person again. Sometime later, at the secret US government base, Dr. Grant sets off an alert for the site commander, and as soon as he meets his boss, the scientist says that Concussion is alive, and that he is getting closer and closer to the hideout. Realizing that they only have a 12-day window for the man to reach them, the sergeant decides to reactivate the Zenith program, and orders his employee to gather all the young people with special powers. Before leaving, the old man says that only Zoom will be able to train the new superheroes, so he orders Dr. Grant to go to the man and bring him to the facility. In his workshop, Jack uses the ultra speed of his fingers to prepare another of his vitamins when he is visited by members of the laboratory. Dr. Grant says that a new Zenith team will be created, and since they need a teacher for the new superheroes, the scientist orders Zoom to accompany him to the secret government base so that they can begin their training. However, the man says that he has no interest in returning to his old life and asks the people to leave. When he hears this, the scientist explains that they have been given permission to take him there by force, and that if necessary, they can even use their equipment to make him pass out, preventing him from resisting. Dr. Grant quickly reaches for his tranquilizer gun, but his partner Marcia tries to stop him, causing the man to accidentally throw the dart. While the federal agents are taking Zoom to his secret laboratory, a young girl called Cindy is begging for sweets in the neighborhood, when she is intercepted by a bully who tries to steal the girl. Annoyed, the little girl uses her super strength to throw the boy away, causing him to get stuck in the branches of one of the trees. Far away, a student named Summer goes to the cafeteria of her high school, when she begins to be ridiculed by the cheerleaders, who try to annoy her by stealing her trays. Wanting to teach the girls a lesson, the young woman uses her powers of telekinesis and splashes all the sauces in the kitchen in the direction of the teenagers, who get completely dirty. In one of the school's classrooms, the teacher continues his equations lesson, but when he notices that his student Dylan isn't paying attention to his lesson, he decides to punish him and orders the young man to solve the question written on the board. Thanks to this, the young man ends up getting nervous, and due to his anxiety, he begins to lose control of his powers, causing him to become invisible in front of his entire class, which leaves everyone completely surprised. Meanwhile, at the city's water park, Tucker climbs to the top of the trampoline so that he can perform a big jump into the pool. At that moment, one of the children makes fun of the boy, and furious at the jokes he is hearing, the boy decides to use his elastic powers, enlarging his body and causing the water to be pushed everywhere, knocking several people down. In the lab, Zoom finally wakes up and orders the scientists to let him go, as he doesn't intend to help them in their mission. Despite this, Dr. Grant explains that if he decides to help them train the new superheroes, the department can present him with a gift of $500,000, and tells him that if the man refuses to cooperate, he will be sent to prison. With no other choice, Jack accepts the invitation, and now that they have finally become allies again, the scientists take him to the control room, where they introduce all the participants in the selection of heroes. When he realizes that Dylan has invisibility powers, Jack is extremely excited by what he is witnessing and approves of the young man immediately. Soon after, Cindy appears and starts singing the alphabet to the man, who is confused and tells her that it's not a superpower. Annoyed by the accusations, the girl grabs the table and throws it across the gym, completely destroying the object and making Zoom decide to approve of the little girl. Continuing the selection, the man calls the next candidate, and after demonstrating her powers of telekinesis, Summer is quickly approved as another member of the team of heroes. Finally, Tucker is summoned to be tested by the jury, who, upon seeing his elastic abilities, are extremely excited and decide to approve him. Now that they finally have a team of potential superheroes, Zoom prepares to start training the youngsters, and begins to describe the radiation procedures his students will go through, leaving everyone extremely confused. Marcia quickly takes the instructor out of the room and explains that they don't intend to use Gamma-13 on the youngsters, as she believes they can develop their powers naturally. Soon afterwards, Grant takes Jack to his warehouse, where he reveals that he had created a special costume for his companion dozens of years ago, But thanks to the tragic events that led to the end of superheroes, the man never had the opportunity to wear the uniform. So that she can cheer up the young mutants, the scientist decides to give Zoom several comic books, which tell all the stories and adventures he has had in the past. Curious about what they are discovering, the teenagers go up to Jack and ask him what it's like to be a superhero, but the man refuses to answer their questions. Zoom explains that despite having superhuman abilities, which earn them various titles, the youngsters will never be superheroes, as these types of people don't exist in the real world. Sometime later, Jack returns to the control room, where Cindy is performing another of her strength tests, being able to lift up to 5 tons off the ground. Confused, the man activates the microphone in the booth and asks what his student is wearing. Excited, Cindy replies that it's her princess dress and tells him that she intends to wear it on her adventures around the world. Trying to discourage her, Jack explains that the girl won't be able to wear something like that on her missions. Outraged, Cindy throws one of the weights at the man, causing the glass of the cab to be completely destroyed. Soon after, Dylan continues his invisibility training, but an alert goes off in the lab when Grant realizes that the young man has used his powers to escape once again. In the power cabin, Tucker is struggling to expand his body as he still has no control over his special abilities. Tired of waiting for the boy, Jack mocks him, causing the mutant to become furious and suddenly increase the size of his body, pressing the Guardian against the glass. In the meeting room, the sergeant is becoming increasingly irritated and asks why his heroes are not yet fully prepared for the confrontation. Embarrassed, Marcia explains that her superior has not yet informed her about what is going on, and so she has not been able to teach the young people about what they are really going to face. Despite this, the old man doesn't listen to the scientist and orders the training to continue, as there are only 5 days left until concussion arrives. The next day, the superheroes are taken to the inventions lab, where Jack meets Mr. Pibb, his robot mascot and former teammate. Grant says that from now on, he will leave the kids in Zoom's care, as he needs to manage the rest of the facility. Now that they are no longer being watched by the scientist, the man decides to take his students to the safe house and asks Pibb to help him open the security door. Inside one of the warehouses, the youngsters find a large flying saucer, and Jack says that this will be the aircraft they will use on their missions around the world. So the group decides to practice piloting the alien spacecraft, using their abduction tools on the local cows, and even ordering food from the drive-thru. At the secret base, Marcia watches a TV report in which journalists interview restaurant workers who claim to have spotted a UFO in front of their establishment. Concerned about the problems that Zoom's actions could cause, the woman sets off in the direction of the warehouse, where she comes across Jack and his students returning to the site as if nothing had happened. Furious, Marcia scolds the tutor, telling him to start training immediately, but he doesn't listen and leaves. The next morning, the young mutants begin their real training, where paintball ammunition is fired in their direction to simulate the attacks of their enemies and allow them to practice their evasive skills. Shortly afterwards, Summer tries to practice her telekinesis, but she still can't control the intensity of her powers, and she receives a chair to the face. Continuing her weightlifting, Cindy is becoming increasingly impatient with Jack, begging him to create a super name for her. However, her teacher doesn't listen to her and orders her to keep practicing, causing her to get angry and use her super strength to throw one of the forklifts away. After a long day of training, the youngsters gather in their dormitory, and so that he can cheer up his students, Jack decides to bring them some treats. Despite the gifts, Summer is extremely disgusted with the man and tells him that she sees no point in having Zoom as their tutor if they are never trained by him. Trying to get closer to his students, Jack goes to Dylan's cell, and while talking about his past, the professor reveals that he was once held in that containment cell several years ago, and tells him that he was the main reason why the lab decided to build it. On the other side of the hideout, the rest of the group of young people are trying to sneak through the corridors so that they can explore the facility. After walking around for a few minutes, they come across Dr. Grant, who is carrying out some maintenance in the survival simulation room. Using her telekinesis, Summer locks the door to the cabin, trapping the scientist and allowing Tucker to press one of the buttons on the table, which simulates a storm in the room. Cindy then pushes another button, which causes Grant to be struck by lightning and completely toasted. So that they can have even more fun, the youngsters carry out various attacks on the scientist, forcing him to survive a blizzard, powerful winds and even an earthquake, which causes several rocks to fall around him. Finally, Cindy presses the only remaining button on the panel, at which point a robotic skunk appears in front of Grant, who is hit by a large quantity of stinking gas and ends up fainting. Sometime later, Jack and Dylan are talking inside the radiation chamber, and when he notices that his student isn't paying attention to what he's saying, the man has an idea, and asks the young man to concentrate on locating Summer, who is on the other side of the facility. At that moment, the young man discovers that he possesses a power called mental vision, a psychic ability that allows him to see through walls, and upon discovering this, Zoom is extremely proud, saying that his student could become the next leader of the superhero team. As they talk, Dylan asks his guardian about his old team, and the man says that he is the only survivor of the group, as all the other members were eliminated by concussion, who eventually perished during the fight. The next morning, Jack feels more and more excited about teaching the youngsters, and after meeting up, the superheroes begin another day of training. So that they can fight their enemies, the teenagers train their martial arts techniques, using their blows to break various wooden planks, while Cindy destroys their metal pillars. Now that he can control his mind, Dylan has even more control over his powers, and can make any object invisible with ease. During the training, Grant and his assistants finish creating another of his inventions, where they manage to invent a super fabric, capable of withstanding Tucker's elastic powers without being destroyed. Finally, all the teenagers manage to resist the test of the paintball chamber, dodging all the shots and pressing the central button, allowing them to complete another one of their tests. At the end of the training, Jack and Marcia talk in the cafeteria of the hideout, and the former hero tells her that he is extremely happy with the results of his students, as they are becoming a real team. In the desert, Dr. Grant realizes that the arrival of concussion is getting closer, and he goes to the place where it will appear, accompanied by the sergeant. Using the lab's special glasses, the old man sees the origin of the portal that will bring the villain back to reality, and claims that the mutant will return even more powerful than last time. Grant explains that the best strategy to defeat concussion would be to use the young mutants as a distraction, so that they can fight the man while the military try to capture him with their sonic net, which will knock him out in no time. In addition, the scientist reveals that if Zoom still had his special powers, he could run at high speed around his brother, creating a large vortex that could reverse the effects of the gamma radiation that was caused in the villain. In the evening, the members of the facility decide to throw a big party to celebrate the completion of the young people's training. Cindy and Pib dance wildly together, while Dylan meets up with his partner Summer. After giving her a romantic gift, the young man decides to ask his beloved to dance with him, and together they set off for the dance floor. Suddenly, the sergeant appears on the scene, ordering the celebrations to stop immediately. Confused, Jack goes to the soldier and asks why he is being so aggressive with the teenagers, but the man reveals that he is only doing what is necessary to complete his mission. What's more, the old man says that he's even planning to use gamma radiation on the teenagers so that they can evolve enough to become great fighting machines. Wanting to prevent his students from going through the same problems as his old team, Jack decides to go to the youngsters' dormitory, and after waking them up, he takes the group to one of the energy panels. By pressing a hidden button, the man reveals a secret passage and leads his apprentices to his old hideout. Inside, Zoom says that the youngsters are ready to become superheroes, and tells them that it's time for them to be given their names. As a result, the teenagers create their own heroic titles, and thanks to his reputation for escaping training, Dylan is given the name Houdini. Wanting to fulfill her fairy tale dream, Cindy decides to be called Princess, while Tucker is given the codename Megaboy. Finally, Summer is in doubt as to what she can be called, and her companion says that his beloved should be named Marvel. During the conversation, Dylan ends up having another one of his visions. Noticing that the boy isn't feeling well, Jack tries to calm him down and asks him to describe what he's seeing. Terrified, he says that he can see Dr. Grant next to the sergeant, but by reading the pair's thoughts, the young mutant discovers that concussion is still alive, and sets off towards the laboratory, so that he can finally have his revenge. Upon hearing this, Jack is furious and goes to the control room to confront the leaders of the facility. However, the old man has made up his mind and orders his employees to arrest Zoom, while Marcia takes the youngsters to the gamma radiation chamber. Halfway through, the scientist turns on the security guards and uses her rainbow breath to throw 2 guards away. Dylan quickly takes advantage of his invisibility to knock out his enemies, and Tucker extends his arms to hit the soldiers. Now that they're free, the mutants decide to run to the laboratory prison, and while Summer uses her telekinesis to trap one of the guards in the ceiling, they go to Jack's cell. Thanks to her enormous strength, Cindy manages to destroy the wall, and after helping her guardian out from under the rubble, they run towards the hangar. Quickly, Zoom rushes to the gate control panel and asks his companions to enter the flying saucer so that they can finally escape. Realizing that his fighting machines are about to escape, the old man orders his soldiers to close the hangar doors and capture the young people, as there are only 10 minutes left before the villain finally appears. Before they are trapped again, Jack rushes to the flying saucer, and so that they can get out of the facility, Summer fixes the mechanisms of the aircraft, and performs a maneuver to get through the gates. Outside, the group goes to the place where concussion will appear, and Zoom orders his companions to stay in the vehicle and let him try to talk to his brother. So Jack approaches the scene, at which point Concussion appears from inside the portal and starts walking towards the former hero. Trying to calm him down, Zoom explains that he doesn't intend to attack his brother, and asks the man to listen to what he has to say. However, the villain doesn't listen to the man and hits him with one of his concussive punches, causing Jack to be thrown away. Confused, Concussion walks up to his brother, asking what happened to his powers, but before he can answer him, Zoom is hit once again. Nearby, the sergeant and his soldiers see the super-villain attacking Jack repeatedly, and decide that they will take advantage of the distraction to try to capture him with the sonic net. In order to prevent his companion from being eliminated by Concussion, Pib appears and draws the man's attention while he prepares to spring the trap. Soon afterwards, the team of young mutants appears on the scene in their new superhero costumes, and in order to distract him, Princess decides to challenge the villain. At that moment, the military fire the sonic net towards the villain, who quickly manages to deflect it with his concussive powers, causing the mechanism to fly towards Princess. Suddenly, Zoom reactivates his ultra speed and manages to save his student, who is overjoyed to see her tutor using his powers again. As a result, the superheroes gather on the battlefield, while Concussion unleashes several attacks on the soldiers, who flee in desperation. Realizing that his brother won't be defeated so easily, Jack decides to take part in the fight and uses his supersonic speed to race to the laboratory. After taking a nasty tumble along the way, which sends him tumbling for hundreds of meters in the desert, he reaches the facility, where he finds his special superhero costume. Without wasting any time, the man returns to the battlefield, and after meeting up with his team, they work together to defeat Concussion. Quickly, Princess raises a metallic signal tower and prepares to hit her enemy while Houdini uses his invisibility to approach the villain and punch him in the face. At that moment, Zoom starts running in circles around the battlefield, creating a huge vortex in the area. Soon afterwards, Marvel uses her powers of telekinesis to throw several stones at the man, who, thanks to the distraction, ends up being surprised by Mega Boy, who expands his belly to push him away. Taking advantage of the fact that her enemy has been thrown high into the air, Princess hits the man with her tower, causing it to fly up into the air and be blown towards the tornado by Marsha's winds. During the fight, Grant approaches the scene and warns Zoom that there's a chance they can save Concussion, and to do so, the superhero will need to close the vortex. Furious, the villain tries to use his concussive attacks to free himself from the trap, but to no avail, and after a few seconds, the tornado closes completely, causing his target to be knocked out by the air pressure. Noticing that his brother has been defeated, Zoom approaches the man, who is extremely happy to discover that he has finally been freed from the radioactive hypnosis. Excited to have his brother back, Jack decides to introduce him to his new companions, and now that they are together, the superheroes leave the battlefield. A few months later, the young mutants continue their lives happily, because from now on, they can count on their superpowers to face any challenge that crosses their path. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.